thanks for staying with us. We're still discussing the issue of assisted fertility and also assisted conception and also surrogacy. In cases where things go wrong, how do people find redress? Because if they don't have laws, the lawyers are not well informed. How would they find redress?
Okay, first of all, one of the things that ought to happen is that parties involved have to be adequately counseled.
Okay.
It might fail. It might go wrong. Let them have an helicopter view of what you are about to do, what they're about to embark upon. Have their consent at every stage. The consent of the donor, the consent of the recipient, the consent to store. So we've had instances, I and my wife store an embryo or together, and then suddenly, I drop my sperm, she drops her egg, then suddenly we break up. Can she go there and say, okay, my new husband, though, she wants to use, do you understand my point?
Exactly.
Issues. We have cases in court now where husband say, look, we have been doing this IVF thing for several years, it's not working. Let's not bother again. Probably we'll find a second wife. The wife decides, goes behind his back to the clinic, gets his sperm, gets a surrogate, and does it, comes back and says, Oga, you now have a child. The man says, I didn't consent to it, and we are in court as we speak on that.
Wow.
We also have instances whereby, through life, couple pay the court surrogate, they come from the east, come to Lagos, surrogate delivers a child that is blind. The husband, the couple says, I did not pay for a blind child. So are you ordering on eBay? You get, I did not pay for a blind child. Surrogate says, I want my balance, and come and carry this baby. I've done a case whereby, unfortunately, surrogate delivers twins.
And they paid for one.
They found out that the receiving parents died a few days, earlier of COVID. So what happens to the babies? The surrogate says, I'm a youth copper, I'm going back.
Oh my goodness.
Who is going to pay my balance? Hospital is saying, who is going to pay for
Delivery.
the medical procedures? Now the question is, these kids here, what's going to happen? So we now have to revisit again and say, okay, now where we are doing surrogacy, you ensure that the receiving parties bring a next of kin. That should in case something happens to you and this surrogate delivers,
They'll be responsible.
they be responsible. And those people too be counseled. You would have, so we found out that a lot of times our people don't take time. You just make sure you just pay and say, okay, when I come back in 9 months' time. No,
9 months is a long time.
there are procedures, there are processes, there are protocols that has to be. But if there is no legislation, the best you can do is to leave it to the best judgment of the parties involved. That instances where surrogates, after collecting money, refuse to drop the baby. We've had instances where they did a case recently. The receiving parents said, honey, this child is too dark. And
it's both their egg and semen that came together.
Well, it I think must have been maybe the husband's own. But the wife said, honey, this child is too dark.
Okay, so are they
we had to convince them to take. Then somebody now recommended a cream for a baby. Yes,
okay. So are there no processes? Because I was watching all this Korean movie once, and the girl was supposed to be a poor girl, and then the father of the guy was asking whether the girl is a good girl to have a child for their prestigious family, and she was saying, I'm open to a DNA while the pregnancy is not even showing, and I'm wondering which DNA. And so they had to go do one, and they said as she had not given birth, the baby was 100% the guy's baby, and I'm wondering, the baby is still in embryo. How does this work really?
There is a process that you can use. It's quite expensive, particularly where you want to determine sex, or if you want to determine if there is a chromosomal problem from here. So it really picks it up, But most couples don't usually go that length because
those that
it's
were
quite
looking
expensive. But if you want to do it, there are places in Nigeria.
Okay, so for those that were looking at the baby is black, it's not the bleached baby they expected God to form.
But you wouldn't have even known the complexion of the baby from
I don't understand.
It is the deformity, you know, it is deformity, the age, the gender, you know, that you can determine through that process. I think of GPT or so, but not if the baby is. But we have instances too. In Nigeria too, you can check it out. I saw it myself, website. Girls, you stand and say, my name is Bisola, I am 24, I'm in University of XYZ, I'm willing to carry a child for you for X amount of money.
Hey.
Totally unregulated, yes. I delivered a paper at the NBA conference, incidentally, NBA conference, in Tinapa, I think around 2014, on this same issue. Girls will be on websites, and they will stand there, say, I play basketball, I'm tall, I'm 6'1", blah, 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 blah. I'm willing to carry a child for you anywhere in the world. Some say, I'm willing to carry a child for you outside Nigeria. That's a condition for those ones. Just arrange visa and you know. So there is urgent need for regulation in this system.
So there's a conflict.
Okay, so you're saying that you talked about this in 2014, that's 10 years ago. And so what are legislators doing? 10 years ago.
Exactly.
10 years ago.
Yeah. They're there singing praises to the president.
When there's a conflict,
yes.
When there's a conflict of law, like this one that our Senate leader is doing in the UK right now.
Yes.
So for a girl who wants to have a child for you willingly by Nigerian law or lawlessness, lack of law, in the UK, for instance, and then she crosses the icon open, and there's a conflict now because in the UK there are protection laws or restrictive laws against such a transaction.
Probably the same thing that happened to the Senate President, Deputy Senate President will happen. They're not enforceable. The surrogate that you have paid, if she collects your money and doesn't even give you the child, which court will you take her to?
Nothing you can do about it.
You can't enforce an illegality in the first place. You understand my point? So we are only just, all this, we're just hoping on hope and, humanity or whatever. But we found instances whereby the motive is usually pecuniary, and when that is done, when that is the motive, it becomes highly unpredictable. Human nature with money, you cannot predict how they react.
So we need our lawmakers.
Legislations, yes, but we should not do the error. And that's what we are telling them now, to say, oh, you want to just do a surrogacy. No, you must be assisted conception bill that covers the entire gamut. You understand my point? You cannot just say you are doing a section while the other one is in abeyance. No, so, and the same effort, right, that will take you. So,
young girls who are looking to keep their eggs, do we have banks in Nigeria who are...
Yes, cryopreservation, yes, they are. They are, and they have their
any issues around that? Have you experienced any issues around those who try to, maybe they wanted to get the egg and for some reason the egg, maybe the freezer or the generator is not working, the egg spoiled, you get all kind of funny stories.
Yes,
the major challenge we find at times, which is why we need legislation, is that if you lodge your egg and somehow you are writing your will, I have a car, I have a house, I have my eggs frozen in that clinic. Can you bequeath it out to someone? Can you donate? You get my point? Can you say, I'm just trying to expand your, that can your son or your, say, I want to inherit my mother's eggs. Do you understand my point? Those are the things we should ask. So that is why we need to have legislations in this. I've had instances whereby, couples break up, but they have a joint account. You get my point? Of some sort of, they went there together. So so what do you do? Can the bank, for example, discard it? What are the processes for such?
Otunba.
Globally, there are processes, but here, you are using your best discretion as a professional, which isn't, the most ideal situation.
If we remove religion,
yes,
can we have this conversation morally, where I love my friend, I have 8 children, and my friend doesn't have one, and the problem is the uterus.
Yes.
And I volunteer to carry. No. The moral question would be: I love my daughter, and my daughter can't, but my uterus is still valid. I'm still quite young. I'm in my early 40s, and my daughter is already married, and I want to carry the child for the daughter. Yes. That bloodline of is a blood, completely blood.
Yes,
It's a mix,
and that is why.
You know?
That is why.
The son who wants to go and inherit the mother's eggs, you want to give it to your wife.
That is why, nephew, for example, every facility providing these services needs to have an ethics committee. I belong to quite a couple of them for various ones. But when it comes, it is not the practitioner who is moral, who has seen you, who knows your pain, who might not be as objective.
Yeah.
You just inform us and say, ethics committee, please review this for me. You've had a recent one, but the reason why it was declined was because that the mother has passed the cutoff age within our considered ethical limit. The mother was 52 or something like that.
She can't carry.
And we said, no, she can't, because she has passed that certain age. If she was 41,
why not?
Because, you know, so such things, it is the ethics committee that will, yes, and how many facilities have it? Those that have are just doing it because, one, they can afford it, two, they trying to have as much as possible international best practices. But if they can avoid it, they wouldn't.
We have to wrap up.
They would.
Any comments, questions on social media that we want to? I mean, lots of
somebody said,
talking about
that God will just be laughing at us Nigerians that look at these ungrateful people. I've given you child, they're talking about yellow or black. Someone says everything will turn yam pepper scatter. And
so we have to wrap up, but I think I like you just to say in the final word. I mean, we've been talking a lot that we need legislation, and I think that's obviously the crux of the matter. And just let you give 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's also important for us to benchmark on what we have done in Lagos, which is the ethical guidelines. Let's make it more robust, fuller, and make it nationwide, not just state legislation. We've learned from Lagos. Lagos alone can't do it. But if it's nationwide, then again, we might just be able to do things rightly. And it's not only asset conception. We need organ donation and harvesting. We need cosmetic surgery. You know,
which is
popular now. You begin to find charlatans there. And because they are expensive, they are contemporary, people will do. So why don't we? And we have committees on health, National Assembly. You know, let's begin to think outside the box and do things for our people.
We need more lawyers. You thought we had too many lawyers. All of them
legislators.
There's
most of the lawmakers are
legislators. I have a master's in legislative drafting, but then they have to want you to do that for them, because obviously they have all this time on their hands and nothing is being done, and there's so much to do.
They're collecting 300 million naira from Fubara to go and eat the rice.
You didn't say it's Natasha
that is all we can take on today's show. YK, thank you very much for your thoughts and comments. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Pleasure, sir.
All right, that's all we can take on today. We learned a few things as we have. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.